Hello and welcome, Dental Speaker Institute Facebook group, to another episode of DSI Live Q&A. I'm your host, Vanessa Emerson, founder of Dental Speakers Institute and Dental Speakers Bureau, and I'm super excited to be here with my friend Chuck Blakeman tonight. Chuck, welcome to our little show.
Thanks, Vanessa. It's just a joy to be with you. I'm very excited about this. Look forward to it all day.
Thank you. I have too, and I think rather than giving a formal bio introduction, what I'd really like to do is just share with our listeners a little bit about you from the standpoint of Vanessa, from my bird's eye view, because we've gone back a couple of years for sure, at least a couple of years or more. And it all started for me when I first heard about Chuck Blakeman in my life. It was our colleague Rita Zamora and I were on a phone call, and I was listening to me bemoan how little I could get done within the time I had, or something along those lines, and suggested a book that literally changed my life. Making Money is Killing Your Business. And this is my copy of the first edition, which I know there's an updated version, but
it's red.
It's been loved and marked up and dog-eared and referred to frequently. And I know that there are quite a few people who will watch this that I have worked with over the years that will say, and she's still referring that. I would tell you that practically every newer speaker I talk with, I do refer this book. I believe that it is that good. I've read it 4 times. I've listened to it on Audible twice.
Wow.
Why?
Thank you.
Why, you say? Because it's not just another business book. For me, it read really easily. It made a lot of sense. It was easy to get through, but most, and learn from, but mostly it had a big impact for me. I did work through the life vision. I did create the strategic plan, and I still use those today. And I think you and I trying to figure this out. It was probably 6 or 7 years ago. I mean, it's been some time. Yeah.
Yes, it is.
So besides being the author of this #1 business book of the year, and I would encourage everyone to go out to either Amazon or probably makingmoneyIsKillingYourBusiness.com would be a great place.
Either way.
But in addition to that, Chuck is an author of other books, and also is a really, I think, expert and well-respected industry leader as a business advisor, because he's the real deal. He has built 12 businesses in 8 industries and on 4 continents. Did I get that right?
That's pretty close.
But who's counting, right?
That's right.
That's really impressive. So without me going into any more of the details, Chuck, I would love for you to give us just a little glimpse into, who you are, your background, and why would you be here talking today to dental speakers and consultants?
Yeah, great question. Well, I am a serial entrepreneur, so you've kind of exposed that. That's a disease that I have. My life vision, or my life vision is to live well by doing good. But my life question has always been, why do what others can and will do when there's so much to be done that others can't or won't do? So that's an entrepreneurial kind of mindset is, there's a hole over there. Let me fill that. And there's something that people think can't be done. Well, let me try that. And so that's how I ended up in so many different things. But I appreciate the question, why would I be here? And I think one of the reasons I'm here is because I think I have some background in how to actually be an author and a speaker from maybe a different direction than some, but certainly something that might be of value to people. Because I do not consider, to this day, I've written 3 books. I'm on my 4th. And the 4th one will come out this fall. It's called Rehumanizing the Workplace by Giving Everybody Their Brain Back. I like long, crazy titles, but I've written 4 books. Some of them have been used as textbooks for MBA courses and undergraduate entrepreneurial courses at places like University of Georgia, and I speak all over the world. I was in Ireland 3 weeks ago. I was at Tufts University last week, and Philadelphia after that. But I do not consider myself a speaker or an author. And I even put that in my first book. I said, this is not a book I've written. This is a life I've lived. And I think that's the difference for me, is that I didn't sit around saying, I want to become a speaker, or wouldn't it be great to be an author? I just went and did things, and then I found it compelling enough that I feel like I needed to share this with other people. Well, how would I do that? Well, if you speak about it, that's one way. And if you write about it, that's another way. And so I do podcasts, I speak, I write, I do online courses. I do lots of different things, but it's because I have something compelling that I feel like I want to share with the world that I think the world needs to hear. And I think that, I'm guessing that a lot of people who are speakers and authors are nodding their heads and saying, yep, that's the right approach. Because I remember having someone come up to me once and said, I want to become a speaker. And I said, that's your first problem. Because that's just a methodology. That's just a process. Why do you want to become a process? You don't pick a process and then figure out what content you're going to put in the process. You need to have something to say. And if you have something to say, you won't be able to help yourself. You become a speaker or an author. So that's the right direction of this. And I think I didn't know that. I didn't I didn't do that. I didn't think about that. I sort of backed into that. And then years later realized, okay, that's how I ended up doing so much speaking and so much writing, because I just continue to have experiences that I want to share with the world around me. I built all these crazy businesses, and now I'm totally focused in dentistry for the last 10 years. And I just got stories, and I got things that I'm learning all the time, and I just want to share those.
Oh, that's awesome. And I love that you found a home in dentistry. I think it's a good marriage of your experience and skills and talents and what dentistry needs. And I know you do work with dentists and dental practice owners, but also with speakers and consultants, because we've done some work together. I know some of our colleagues have coached with you as well, which is, of course, why I think it'll be a fabulous fit for you to join us at Jumpstart with the keynote in 2020, but we'll get to more about that later in this episode. And I wanted to shout out, we've got quite a few people watching, some good friends here. We've got Shelly Renee. Hey, Shelly Renee. That's right. And we've got Candace Martin. Welcome, Candace. As you join us, please type in a hello to Chuck, and that will help me know that you're here. We've got Manal Sampat here. Susan Cotton, Florentina Gallo, quite a few of our friends. Sonia Lauren, thank you so much for being here and listening in tonight. And be sure to put your question for Chuck in our Q&A. We're going to be here about 30 or 40 minutes. And if you have a business-related question, we'd love to hear it from you. So let's start in with just kind of piggybacking off of where you were just going, Chuck. And you talked about, speaking, and rather than jumping in to say, hey, I want to be a speaker, I find that when people come to me for coaching too, they'll say, well, what are the hot topics, or what should I speak on?
Right.
And I think that's not really the angle to come in. No. Could you approach that from the standpoint of business development? Where do you suggest the dental speaker / consultant begin?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it would be the same answer I would give a dentist or Google or anybody else. The first place I would go to is, what am I really good at? What do I find really compelling? What do I feel like I have to offer? And then let me go out there and see if anybody wants that. So what does the market want, and what am I good at? And you'll notice what's missing there. What's missing there is, what is everybody else speaking on?
Yeah.
In fact, that would probably be one of the worst things you could do, is find out what are the hot buttons, what are the things that other people are speaking on, because then you will gravitate toward those things, and you'll come away from the things that are your true calling, if you will, your true passion, and the match between you finding people who want something and it's something I have is magical. So go out there and look for, here's what I have to offer. Is there anybody out there who wants that? Mm-hmm. And if they don't, well, that's a problem. And maybe I can tweak it. A lot of times it's not that they don't want it. It's just that they don't understand what I'm saying. Maybe I need to tweak it. But too often we default to, well, let me go with the standard, whatever somebody else is talking about. Let me join them. The two last words of a dying marketing program, and I think of a dying business, are me too.
Correct.
What's everybody else doing? Let me do that. Yeah, no, that's the wrong approach. So what am I good at? And Shelly Renee Starkman is a great example. You should just put her on here and let her talk about, I could feel the passion in her when she was managing a dental practice and couldn't figure out how to get out of that thing. And I could see she just had a blue flame pushing her out, that she had this thing that she knew she had to offer dentistry. And it had nothing to do with I need to be a speaker. It was, I got something to offer. Well, now she's speaking and writing and and consulting and doing all that stuff. So that's where I'd say find out what you are really good at. What is your unique sauce? As my Irish friend who runs our business in Ireland says, you can steal what I do, but you can't steal who I am.
Yeah.
And if you come to that place and you're putting out there what you are, who you are, nobody can steal that.
Right. That's a real point of differentiation, just being authentically yourself, because no one else can be. And so let's step back a step further. I don't think we really started at the beginning. I'm wondering, as we're talking about this, I'm thinking, what if we stepped back to life vision and business strategy, right? Would that be ultimately the beginning, is knowing where we're driving the bus with the life vision?
Well, as I said in my first book, in Making Money Scaling Your Business, the first question in business, the most important and probably the last, or the most important and probably the least asked question in business is why. And especially on a global level, why am I doing this? Well, I'm doing this because I lost my job, or I had an entrepreneurial spasm and I quit working for the man, or I went out on my own and then I woke up and said, holy cow, I got a mortgage to pay. Now what do I do? That's why I'm doing this, because I got a mortgage to pay. And we seem to never get past the tyranny of the urgent and that need to pay the mortgage. But that's the big question, is why am I doing this? And that's what we do with dentists and with speakers who we work with. Let's figure out the big why. We call it the big why first. And the big why is very simple in a lot of ways. There's some things we got exercises to get there, but the big why is that one or two things in your life that you could never check off as complete. You will be pursuing these things, even if you can check off a bit of them every day, you'll never figure them out. How to be a great mom, how to make an impact in dentistry your whole life, how to be a lifelong learner. There's so many things that you could have as a big why. And that's the foundation of any great business, is figuring out how they make meaning in the world, not just make money. Let's figure out how to make meaning first. So that's the place to start. And I was lost in that, Vanessa, to begin with. I came out of high school. I was ADHD, left-handed, right-brained, dyslexic. I was a mess. The only thing they could diagnose back then was left-handed, and they tried to change that too. That was bad. So I came out of high school at the bottom of my class, figuring I could never get a job. Went into the Army because I knew they had to take me because I had a high school diploma. And while I was in the Army, started my first business, realized, okay, maybe I have something to offer. But I didn't have a vision to begin with. And it was years later that I began to ask myself, why am I doing this stuff? And my vision became live well by doing good. At first, it was a couple of pages of me sharing with myself what I want my life to look like, and that became a couple paragraphs, and that became a sentence or two that I lived with for a very long time. And then I at one point I saw something that caused me to say, yeah, this is really what I've been trying to say for the last few years: live well by doing good. And I can unpack that for 2 or 3 Guinnesses. What does that mean in the way of helping people in the dental speaking world and dental practice management people? And there's all kinds of ways that I can unpack live well by doing good. But that's where the blue flame starts. The premise of this, Vanessa, is that when you're out there trying to make money, making this to solve problems. Robert Herjavec, one of the 5 sharks on Shark Tank, he's always saying, don't go into business to make money, go into solve a problem. Well, that's the big why stuff. So, and this was revolutionary for me. I went through 6 businesses trying to make money. And it was in my 6th business, I finally said, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but this business is going to serve me. And I put this on the back of my that first book, the one you had in your hands: use your business to build your ideal lifestyle. And it was the first time I'd ever thought, you mean I can actually use this business is not a means, it's not an end, it's a means to an end. I can actually use this as an integral part of my life to be who I want to be in the world around me. It was a revelationary kind of thing for me.
That's awesome. There's so much good there. I'm having some technical difficulties right now. Chuck, sorry. I can still see me, but we hear me.
Yeah, I can see you and I can hear you.
But I can hear me talking back. Give me just a second here to figure out.
Oh, that's annoying.
Yeah. For some
And that's
reason,
technology. It works great when it's working. And if it's not working, then
yeah, my video's going in and out. So I think we're still good. I still got the other on my phone. Let me just turn down the volume. Okay. So, Chuck, next step then, once we determine our big why and have an idea around our life vision, how do we connect that then into growing a business that will actually make us some money and time?
yeah, there's a progression here, Vanessa, and most of us don't follow the progression. We fall back into it, and that's okay. In the ideal world, you would always start your business with, what do I personally want out of this? And actually, even before you come up with your business idea, that would be the ideal. I've never done that, but that's the ideal. Just in a vacuum, say, what do I want out of life? What does my life look like? How much money, how much time, and what kind of energy and what significance do I want to create in the world around me? That's the big why stuff. It's T plus M plus E equals S. Time, money, and energy equals your ability to create significance in the world around you. So ideally, you start there, and then you ask yourself this question. Well, if that's what I want out of life, then what kind of business can I start or do that would give me the best opportunity to get that? Generally, you don't need to start that way. And I didn't, but you can certainly rearrange what you're doing to get back into that. So once you figure out what your big why is, then you ask yourself, how do I use my business to get me there? How do I use my business to build my ideal lifestyle? And then that gives you a whole different relationship with your business. We have a training center in Denver, and splashed across the front of it in big letters like 14 or 16 inches high, it says, make your own business rules. Because he who makes the rules wins. And so once you have a big why, then you ask yourself, how do I make the rules? How do I use my business to get me to my big why? That was also a revolution or a revelation to me as well when I first thought about that, getting into this big why stuff, that I could actually take control of my business and make it serve me. Because we ask that all the time. Do you own a business or does it own you? Do you own a job or do you own a company, a business? Too often we are what I call income producers. For the first 5 businesses, I was an income producer. And the way you know you're an income producer is if you're not there, it starts to fall apart pretty quickly. Even if you're not the one making the chairs, if you're not there supervising the chair makers, you're an income producer. Don't fool yourself. The IRS says you're a business owner, but you're not. Business owners figure out how do they make more money in less time, and you will not be motivated to do that well if you don't have a big why. We have this thing called 3 to 5 clubs, and we have one online. People can join the 3 to 5 club online. I'd highly encourage that if you don't have one in your local area. But in 3 to 5 clubs, we have people who get really attracted to the idea. They came into business thinking, how do I make more money? Well, I have to spend more time. And you're telling me that I can actually make more money in less time? That's a crazy idea. It's very attractive. But what we find is that if they don't have a big why, they really have trouble getting to that because they don't know. Time and money are just resources. And if you don't know why you want the resources, it's going to be harder to get them. So don't pursue time and money either. Pursue the big why and then use your business to get time and money, and in your personal life, create energy for yourself. Those are resources to help you live out your big why. So T plus M plus S. And in that context, then what we do is we encourage people we say there's 4 building blocks in a business. And again, I didn't make this up in ivory towers. I just experienced it, and other people did as well. And the first one is the big why. The second one is, once I have a big why, now I have to have a plan for using my business to help me get there. And so A long time ago, I developed a 2-page strategic plan. One page wasn't long enough, and 3 pages was playing office. So over time, we've settled on two pages, and I use the bottom of page 2 to run our businesses. We all do that, but that's tied directly to the fulfillment of my big why, as well as the other people in my business. We are all pursuing our big whys, and we're using the business to help us get there. And gee, what a surprise. They sync up really well. It's not like we have to ignore the business in order to get this done. No, you'd be amazed at how well these things sync when you first do that. So that's the second building block, is have a plan, a written plan that you follow on a regular basis for how you want to get to where you want to go. Most people don't have a written plan because they don't know where they want to go.
Just haven't put in the time to really think it through and work through it. And it's such an essential piece of the puzzle. So these items are covered in the book and in your keynote and your different trainings, or personally working with someone. I know that in the book I'm referring to, again, for those who join us, Making Kindness Killing Your Business. And so much more we could talk about here. I know that you do one-on-one work with dentists. You have a summit that you do once or twice a year, I believe, for dentists. Can you tell us a little bit more about what type of, how do we take these concepts and apply it then to the dentist? Because so many of our listeners are speakers and consultants with dentists. That seems like there could be a good fit here.
Yeah, and we'd certainly invite them to come to this as well. People in the dental industry could consider these. We call them the GOTT Summits, GOTT. It stands for Get Off the Treadmill. So getofftetreadmillsummit.com. It's gottsummit.com if you want to look into more of it. We have one in July. I believe it's July 17, 18, or 19, something like that, but it's on the site. And this one happens to be here in Denver. The last one was in Irvine, California. We've done them in Texas and Boston and other places, but this one's in my hometown, which is kind of fun. And we have 2 GOTT summits that we put on. One is around this idea of getting the dentist or the business owner, if it's a speaker or a practice management leader, how do we get them off the treadmill personally? What are the things they need to understand? We talk about the things like the business owner's game, the 7 elements of a business, the 7 stages of a business, the 4 building blocks, and give them very practical exercises for how they begin the process of freedom mapping their way off the treadmill. So that's one of the GOTTs. That's the one we just did in Irvine. The one coming up in July is about getting the whole practice off the treadmill. Or the whole business. So how do we get the business, the leaders in the practice and the people at the front desk and the hygienists? How do we get them to the highest and best use of their time, and get them to where they're really running to work because they've got their brains back? How do we distribute the decision making? Too many dentists, they learned it in dental school that they have to be the answer man for everything, or the answer woman for everything. But they're sick of it. It's like, why does everybody come to me? It's a codependency. So we want to teach the practice and teach the practice owner as well, and the practice leader, how to distribute the decision making. And that's going to be the GOTT Summit coming up in July. It's based on the whole idea of where the emerging work world is going. There's a lot of research on where it's come from and where it's going, and you're going to see some radical changes in the coming years. And dentistry is ideally set up to be a front runner in smashing hierarchies and getting rid of managers and all kinds of crazy stuff that doesn't mean anything and doesn't actually help us. It's really set up for that, which is one of the reasons we want to be here. We want to make an impact in this profession first.
Oh, it's really exciting. And it feels to me like there's a real dovetailing that goes on with your message, as well as those practice management or business consultants we have in the industry, that it's not a stepping on toes, it's more of a building on each other's messages. You're not there trying to teach, how to schedule or how to treatment acceptance. I don't believe it's really more about the business of dentistry, which we all know there's a severe lack of that training for dentists in school, and so many are trying to figure it out on their own. And so I love that you're bringing this very important information to the industry. And I think it's wonderful for our speakers and consultants in our group to know about this, and that they would learn a lot by coming to the GOTT summit. And there's also potentially some opportunities for you to work together.
Oh, absolutely. And we live in a world of abundance, not in a world of scarcity. And so we believe in sharing everything we have. And we're Zig Ziglar about this stuff. If we help other people get to their goals, we'll be fine. And so I've spent a few years consulting with very successful practice management consulting groups on how to add some of these things to their things. We've done 2 and 3 day seminars with practice management groups. We've worked with a lot of speakers and consultants to help them figure this stuff out as well. And some of it they just add in into their bag of tricks. In some cases, they do a profit share with us on some of these things that they bring to their practices. But in most cases, we just want people to get this stuff out there.
Love that. And I'd like to try to tie some of this together. So I think that there may be a good marriage here of the idea that how do we get our teams with everyone on board working together and make a decision together? So you have this idea of the fully engaged stakeholder, and it feels like that works obviously for the dentist team, but also for the speaker consultant who gets busier. I think we all get to that place where we would really benefit by having some help with what we do. Do you have tips and advice for us in that regard?
Oh, yeah. And this is about where the work world is going. We've done a lot of research and a lot of study on where we've come from and where we're going. And there's a global trends survey that Deloitte does every year. And 2 years ago, the survey said, we don't know what's wrong with hierarchy, but we know it's wrong. They surveyed 1,000 or 10,000. It's a lot of companies. And 92% of the respondents said that one of their highest priorities was to figure out how to reorganize the way they're doing business around teams, and particularly decentralized teams, a network of teams that make decisions locally. Last year, it was still 90%, and it was even stronger. Last year, 90% of the businesses that they surveyed said, we want to dump hierarchy altogether. We just want to get rid of it.
Uh-huh.
and put this in the hands of local centralized or decentralized teams, networks of teams released to take action locally. So there's a lot of momentum in this direction, and people are saying, well, how could you possibly do that? Because the mindset in business, when I was born, I just assumed for the first few decades, this is the only way to do business, with a top-down hierarchy, with the guy at the top and a bunch of people at the bottom. We call it a pyramid scheme, where the people at the top are using the people at the bottom to benefit themselves. And that's just the way business is. Well, no, it's not. It's what we inherited from a very narrow slice in time. A whole concept of management actually starts, the first time you can find it in history is in Hammurabi's code, AD or BC, like 5,000 years ago. This guy's talking about management, and the way he's talking about management is because he has slaves. Mm-hmm. And the first place you hear of management is in slavery. Makes a lot of sense. If you got a bunch of people who have no desire, they're not going to gain anything from helping you, then you need somebody with a whip standing over them, and thus management was born. And then you see it in serfdom in the Middle Ages, and then in the militaries adopted it, one-for-one relationship, power structures in drafted armies. I don't want to be there. Well, there's a guy at the front and a guy at the back with guns who say, I outrank you, and I'm going to shoot you if you don't do what I say. And then we took that exact same military model, and when we started factories in the late 1700s, we just adopted the military model, took it right into factories, and you can do a one-for-one swap for a new employee all the way through the CEO. It's a one-for-one swap with a new recruit all the way through to five-star general. And we do it for crazy reasons. It's emotionally satisfying. We know exactly whose gun is bigger than my gun. All the power is very clearly placed, but it dehumanizes people. It takes everyone's ability to make decisions away from them. It's all top down, and the rest of us are there just to carry out orders. That seemed to work okay in the factory system. I would suggest it could have still worked better doing it the other way. but it does not work today because most work needs a brain, and we are still treating people like they don't have them.
So how do we make the change? What do we do?
One simple little practice that is incredibly hard to do: distributed decision making. We have to figure out how to distribute the decisions to the place where they will actually be carried out. Who actually makes the copies? Sally, Fred, and Louise. Well, guess who should buy the copier? Sally, Fred, and Louise.
Yeah.
Because they're the most likely to know what they need. Now, they don't do it in a vacuum. So people, think this sounds like chaos and anarchy. Not at all. There's two steps. So distributed decision making is the basic fundamental principle, and the tool for this is what we call two-step decision making. And again, incredibly simple, not that easy to do. Two-step decision making, it basically goes like this. When I see that the copier needs to be replaced, the first question I ask myself is, well, who makes the most copies? And I realized, well, I'm not even one of those. But I saw that it needs to be replaced, so I'm going to go get the three people who I think make the most copies, and I'm going to ask them, hey, do you think the copier needs to be replaced? And they look at it and say, yeah, it does. Or they might be one of the three people who say this. And so, great, well, you guys got it from here, and you might need some input from me or whatever. So they take it and they have a meeting, and that's step number one. Whoever has to make the copies should make the decision about buying the copier. So step number one, who will have to carry out this decision? They should make it. They get together, and the first thing they ask themselves when they get together is, who else, this is step two, who else will be affected by this decision? And this is where all the chaos and all the anarchy go away. If you answer that question, then you realize, well, whoever owns the checkbook, whether it's the accountant or the founder, the dentist, accounting, technology, we got to get something that matches up with our technology. The people who receive copies better figure out what they want. So all the customers of the copier, there's a lot of constituency involved who will be affected by us buying a copier. We better figure this out. And so we get those people and we ask for their advice. And the best way to do this, and one of the reasons this is working so well in the emerging work world, is because we have technology that simplifies this. You don't have to walk around to 40 people and say, do you care about the copier? Do you care? Do you care? No, you get on Slack or Facebook's Workplace, and you put an all points bullet out and say, hey, we're looking at buying a copier. We're not really sure who is going to be affected by this, but if you want to have a voice in this, we're going to have a second meeting coming up this Wednesday. And if you're there, we expect that you have a voice. And if you can't be there and you want to have a voice, let us know. And you just put it out there on Slack and you're done. And then you have your second meeting and you figure out, you get input from accounting as to how, whether you have the money, you get input from your customers, you get input from technology, you feed that back to those people, the strategic leaders, you get a lot of feedback, a lot of collaboration, and you make a decision based on all the feedback you've gotten. It's much safer than having one manager make a decision, because what usually happens is a manager never made a copy in their life.
Yeah.
They just go out and buy something and they foist it on the people who make copies. And then when it breaks, guess what they do? Hey, manager, your stupid copier broke. Well, if they're buying it and it breaks, they're going to take ownership of it. And that's exactly what happened in our company. So that's the core of this. And we have 12 tools that help us get there, from belief systems and kudos, peer recognition surveys, freedom mapping. There's 12 different tools that will help us really expand in this idea, but all of them are about how do we get people working and talking laterally, horizontally to each other instead of vertically up and down some kind of pyramid scheme.
So these are some of the strategies and tools and resources that you share through your GOT Summit.
Yeah,
this is one piece of that, right? It's the how to
yes.
Create fully engaged stakeholders in the business.
Yeah, we'll cover the first 4 tools in depth in the GOT Summit, and we'll hit another couple really well so they know how to do them as they leave. They'll have 6 of the 12 in their pocket when they leave.
Excellent. Now, I want to wrap this around because we're getting close to end of our time. If you have any questions for Chuck, be sure you put them in our comments here. We have a few more minutes. And I would like to shed shine a light on your topics for our Jumpstart conference in January.
Yeah.
we're really excited that Chuck will be providing the keynote for us on how to use your speaking business to build your ideal lifestyle and not just an income. And so we'll have a keynote with a lot of great takeaways from that, including how to get off the treadmill. There's a formula, some ideas on that, how to make more money in less time, how to get back the passion you brought into your business in the first place, and really how to build a business that you can enjoy for decades. And I would say that that's been my experience in utilizing your tools and the resources and the guidance that you provide. It really helped me put in place a plan that I still use year after year after year that has really helped guide my business and help them. I wouldn't change it for the world. I would never go back to the job. So thank you for that. I'm really excited to share that with our listeners.
Well, and I think, Vanessa, it's important for people to hear this from me. Again, this is not stuff I created in an ivory tower to sell some fancy ideas. This is a life I've lived. Everything I will share at that conference are things we do to this day. We have the big why. We have the strategic plan. We do the freedom mapping. We do all of this stuff because it works, and that's why I wrote it down. I didn't dream it up and then figure out it worked. No, we did it, and then I wrote it down, and we exercised it, and we narrowed it, and we refined it. We did it with lots of other business owners and lots of other speakers, and as we did that, we said, okay, this works. Let's write this down. So that's why this has been successful. I didn't know that to begin with, but looking backwards, that's really what made it work. Is we lived it out first.
Exactly.
We still live it out.
Perfect. And then we will also be doing a workshop on freedom mapping, which is that's kind of the nutshell, but basically it's helping us to identify and shift to the highest and best use of our time, which means something I've had to learn along the way is to be able to work with contractors or different people to help me with things that I don't love the best, or I'm not the best at, and that's really been a big shift for me. But multiple other things, as well as process mapping, which would be like job descriptions, but really for processes. Again, important systems that we've utilized that really helped us grow our business, and I know so many other businesses. I'm super excited about your keynote workshop at Jumpstart 2020, Chuck.
Yeah, well, and the freedom mapping thing is a really great exercise for anybody to go through who is a dental speaker or a consultant as well, because it's designed to help you figure out how to get yourself personally off the treadmill. It's the third of the 4 building blocks, and it's where the rubber meets the road. To get this stuff out of your head, through your heart, out your hands, onto a piece of paper, so that you can either get other people to do it or productize it, or we got to figure out how you can make more money in less time. And freedom mapping is really going to give you that 1, 2, 3 step way to do this. It's the old adage, how do you eat an elephant 1 bite at a time? How do I get from where I am to where I have freedom as a speaker? It's just overwhelming. I don't know how to do that. Well, freedom mapping will give you 1 bite of the elephant every month or whatever. Here's the very specific things I need to do to get off that treadmill. And again, there's some people speaking or listening tonight who I know we've worked with who have experienced that.
Exactly. So I'm going to ask you one more question before we go. While we're on this topic of Jumpstart, I put up the website address, jumpstart2020.com. If you use discount code EARLYBIRD, and that's EARLYBIRD, all one word in caps, you can save $300. And we also are running a special right now for the next handful of attendees. We did have 10, but several of those have gone. The next handful of attendees that sign up will also be eligible to have a complimentary headshot session with my husband, Jeff Emerson, who's an amazing photographer and shoots a lot of our demo speakers for their marketing materials. And so that's a $200 value. So you're really save $500 with this early bird discount if you sign up now. The conference is January 9 through 11, 2020 in Phoenix. All right. So, Chuck, before we go, the years that you've worked with entrepreneurs, and especially here in dentistry and dental speakers and consultants that you've worked with, is there one thing you know for sure that you would leave us with as far as a tip for the growing of their businesses? Is there one thing you know for sure?
Yeah, and one thing I know for sure, it's a book I'm writing. I've been writing it for a while. I'll probably write it for another few years. And the book will be called Relentless. And the one thing I know for sure is that having built 12 businesses in 8 industries on 4 continents, and coming out of high school thinking I had nothing to offer the world, and fighting my way through all, it's not how smart you are, it's not how lucky you are, it's how relentless you are. And I like that. I know there's someone out there talking about the concept of grit, that great leaders or great successful people have grit. Well, I think that's partially in the right direction, but grit to me is more of a reactive thing. I'm going to grit it out. Mm-hmm. But to me, relentless is a moving forward thing. It's like, get out of my way. I've got somewhere I need to be. It's me being proactively chasing my big why and chasing the things around me. And like Churchill said, leadership is getting up one more time than you went down. I can't tell you how often I've seen that in successful people. Is people who watch the movie The Founder. Ray Kroc, he was not a brilliant man. Mm-hmm. He sold paper cups and milkshake mixers for 30 years. This is not a genius, but he was freaking relentless. I don't appreciate his life and the way he approached it, but I can tell you the one thing that made him successful was that dude just kept going. And he's a great example of, you don't have to be smart and you don't have to be lucky. You do need to be relentless. So, and this is the idea of conation, speed of execution, keep going. I want something so bad, I'm already doing it. It's all of those things. That's the one thing I'd say to everybody is, and I kind of I sign almost all my emails and correspondence this way: keep going.
Mm-hmm. Those are really wise words. And I would say that I've seen that as well. It's just the day after day, keep that vision and that strategy there in front of you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Chuck, for joining us tonight.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys at Jumpstart 2020, and definitely if people want to know more about what we're doing, connect with me at chuckblakeman.com or just chuck@cranksetgroup.com. Love to chat with some of the people on the call.
Sounds wonderful. We've been running a little across the bottom here. We got those websites in the email, and as well as GOTSummit.com. Awesome. And the dates of the GOT Summit is July 18 to 20 in 2019 in Denver. And at this particular conference, I noticed that you're going to be co-presenting with one of our colleagues, MJ Hamlin.
Yeah, she's an associate dean at Tufts University. I was just out there last week speaking to 70 plus of their students, and I'm excited to have her be part of this GOT Summit. And we'll do something. We'll do a special. There's nothing on the website, but we'll do something special for people who are involved in your community. If they connect with us and connect with me and Krista, we'll figure something out to make the GOT Summit work for them if they want to do that.
Oh, that sounds really awesome. I know I do have a flyer here too that I can post on DSI. I'll post that later too, and we can put in the special offer. So
whatever that price, whatever that pricing is on there, we'll figure out something better than that to help these people get there.
That sounds really wonderful. Well, Chuck, thanks again for being here and sharing your brilliance. We can't wait to hear more from you in January. And in the meantime, thank you so much for being a part of the Dental Speaker Institute. We love seeing you on Facebook and appreciate the difference that you're making in so many lives. Thanks for sharing your brilliance in our world.
Well, I would say the same. Thanks for your impact that you're having in dentistry. Let's all keep going.
Keep on going relentlessly.
That's right.
And to everyone, have a great night.